Hello and welcome to Beginners Python and Machine Learning. My name is Tim Cummings. We're a Python meetup group, and we look at machine learning, and we try to cater for people mostly at the beginner end, so from absolute beginners up to intermediate. And we look at Python topics and also machine learning and data science. So tonight I'm going to be repeating a session that we did in person a couple of weeks ago on how to write a Django web application using Python. And this came about because we thought we needed to do a registrations app because there was not enough information coming from Meetup that we needed to give to Amazon, where our new venue was. So I thought, well, that's a good time to learn Django. I hadn't done Django before, and so I thought it would I could learn something from this and pass on my knowledge. Now, I've done Flask apps before, and I've done web apps in Java before. So the application that we're going to try to develop is this registrations app, which is currently live. I haven't had it on actually, but anyway, I've just turned it on so we can have a look at it, and I'll try to keep it running if you want to have a live demo of it. And what it'll have is showing the upcoming events. So we've got an in-person event coming up on the 21st of August. So people can go in there and they can click on the event to look at it, and they can register to say that they're going to attend. So we didn't want to be looking after passwords for people, so we're going to use Google authentication. So we provided a sign in with Google button. They click on that, and then they're able to sign in using their Google account, and they're in. So I've got my Pythonator dev Google account, and I've just logged in as that. I can now update my membership details if they weren't in the database, that they are actually in the database now. I can put in my first name and my last name and the meetup name, so we can correlate the people who've registered on this to the people who've registered on Meetup to make sure we're not duplicating things. So this is an example of a form in a web application. People fill it out and we save it, and the data gets saved to a database. Then for each individual event, the user can click whether they're attending or not. So let's change that to attending, and if now we click on the event itself, we'll see a list of all the people who are attending. And currently there's just the two because I've only just put it up, and we're not requiring it this time, so we probably won't get a lot of use out of it, but you can see what the application does, and we've got a sign out button there. So let's sign out. Are you sure? Yes. Alright, so I've written the app to do this. I've now also written a course which shows you how to write this app and explain the different parts of it as we go through. So please follow along. I've got a script. I've provided a script here in our GitHub account. So if you click on this link should be below the YouTube video that you're currently watching, and also in the meetup details where I'm clicking on it. So if you click on that, that'll take us over to GitHub, and you can see we've got scripts for all the other sessions that I've presented online, and this one I've put the script in as a markdown file because it's not really it's not one Python script, it's a whole project. Okay, so if you want to follow along, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can clone this GitHub repository that I've already set up, and then you can just click git checkout and go from step to step without having to do any of the typing. There's a couple of steps that you'll need to do with data entry rather than coding, but yes, you'll have to do them manually. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to be creating everything manually here. So I'm going to be using the PyCharm Community Edition IDE, and that's free. That you can get that from JetBrains. So if you've got that, then you'll be easy to follow along. Now, this is a live stream, so the best thing is to ask questions either on YouTube chat, and I see Slade has put in the first comment for the night, and you can also comment in the Beginners Python Slack channel, Learning to Code, and I'll follow things there. There's less censorship happening, like sometimes links and stuff get censored out of YouTube chat, but they'll get through on Slack. So if you're having trouble on YouTube chat, try sending them through on Slack. And I better change that to all messages. All right. So let's follow the script. The first step is to create a project, and we're going to call it Django BPAML site for Beginners Python and Machine Learning. So we'll go into PyCharm and we'll hit the new project button, and we'll call it okay. I'll just save it in the default area. I'm not going to create a Git repository for this one. If you were checking it out then from Git, then you would have clicked the other button as a new project from VCS. Alright, now we're going to create a virtual environment. You should always create virtual environments with your each of your projects, and it's best to keep a separate virtual environment for each project so that you don't cross-contaminate each of your projects with different installed third-party libraries. Now if you're using Python from python.org, then you're best off to use a venv environment. If you're using Python from Anaconda, then create a base Conda environment, and then there's other options as well. But I'm using python.org, so I'm going to create a venv virtual environment, and it's going to be based on Python 3.12, 3.12. Okay, so let's create our project. And it's created over on another window, another screen. So I'll see if I can get it back. Here it is. Okay, let's close that. So it's created this folder and this .venv folder inside it, which is where the virtual environment is stored. So when I presented this in person, I presented it on a Mac, and this time I'm presenting it on Windows. I've also run it on Linux, so it'll be interesting to see how Windows goes tonight. Okay. So the next step, we'll just add this file into the project. So I'm going to copy the raw file, clicking on the copy there, and I'll right click on the folder for our project and create a new file that I'm going to call meetup 206 by me, and the topic is Django, and it's a markdown file. So I'll paste that in there, and then we'll just look at it this way. Okay, so now now I've got the procedure here, I don't need to be able to watch Chrome. Alright, now PyCharm Community Edition is free, and it doesn't, it's got nothing in it designed specifically for Django, and so they're saying if you want Professional Edition, they've actually got special support for Django in it. But anyway, I'm going to see if we can get through just using the Community Edition tonight, and so we can just do it with the free one. Okay. Now we're going to install a third-party library, third-party Python library for Django, and we're also going to install one for Django All-Auth, which so Django handles the web framework side of things, and All-Auth is a fourth party. Basically, it's not part of Django, but it's done by people specifically for Django to handle things like authentication, and in our case we'll be using it for doing the Google authentication. So if I type pip install Django allauth in square brackets social account, that'll install the Django allauth libraries with the extras that are required for doing social accounts, such as Google authentication, and it'll go into the virtual environment that we've set up and is currently running. And I can see over here down at the bottom right, it tells me which one is currently running. It's the virtual environment in c.venv in our project folder. Okay, now I can just actually click on this play button and see if that works in Windows. It worked in Mac. And I only specified one library there, but it finds all the dependencies. So the dependency allauth is dependent on Django, so by installing Django allauth, it'll also install the Django library and all these other libraries, so you can see them all installing nicely. These lines here are supposed to be on the same line in the terminal, and that works in Linux and Mac, but it's obviously not working here in Windows. We're just getting showing on a new line each time. Okay, so this is all the third-party libraries that have been installed. Now I'm going to grab a record of which ones have been installed and put it into a requirements.txt file. So if I need to move this project to another computer, I can restore a virtual environment onto that other computer that's set up exactly the same way that this one is. So I'll open up a terminal. Okay. And it's running PowerShell. And you can see it's got .venv in brackets at the front here, so I know I'm in my virtual environment, and I can see which folder I'm in, which is the project folder. So now I'm going to run pip freeze and send the output of pip freeze into a file called requirements.txt. And you can see now I've created this file requirements.txt, and it doesn't have to be called requirements.txt, but that's just a convention that most people do. And you can see it's got all the libraries that we've installed, including Django 5.8.7 and Django allauth 0.63.6, and all these other ones, the dependencies that it requires. And so by moving this file onto another computer and just saying pip install -r requirements.txt, I'll get an environment very similar to what I'm using here. Okay, now that Django's installed, it actually gives us some command line tools that we can use so that we don't have to type a whole lot of stuff. So one of the things we can do is we can say python manage.py run server, and that will actually run a web server for us with our application as it currently stands. Actually, what happens if I press, I'll just click on the play button here. That should work. No such file. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste into terminal. No such file. Okay, manage.py. Oh yes, because I've missed a step up here. So the first one that we're going to do that requires me not to have to type anything is this one here, which builds the site in Django parlance. So Django has a concept of a project, and PyCharm Community Edition has a concept of a project, and they don't like them being created in the same place, but that's, if you put them in the same place, then it actually works the best, and I'm sure the Professional Edition handles this quite well. But this is the bit that the Community Edition requires us a couple of steps to make it work. Now you can see here we've got our PyCharm project, and here we've got our Django project, and then here we've got some settings inside it. Now what we really need is just 2 folders. We don't need this third depth of folder. So to fix that, all we're going to do is just move the 5 files that are in this folder up 1, and this file manage.py will move that up 1 as well. So I'm just going to drag it up into the top folder. Do I want to move it? Yes. And then these ones will move. And then we'll delete this unnecessary folder, which is the third one down, because we only need the 2. And now we've managed to superimpose the PyCharm project and the Django project in the same place, and everything else will work. So now I can do python manage py.run server. Let's see if the play button works this time. That's looking better, and it's given me a link here. So if I click on that link, it opens up in Firefox, and it shows our web application. It says your install has worked successfully. You're seeing this page because we've got debug equals true is in your settings file, and it's given us some links to Django documentation, tutorial, and Django community. Okay, so I might just leave that there. Now the next command I'm going to run is the this one here, using the Django command line tool in manage.py to start an application. So this is where we start a new web application. So we haven't actually started the web application yet. What we've done is we've set up a site or project, and a site can have several applications in it. Now normally you wouldn't commit the site into Git your repository, you just commit each application, because most of this stuff to do with the site is just settings, configuration for your particular site, and it's easy enough to create the files because you can just use start project and it'll set up a site for you. Okay, but now if I run this one, start app, this will start the app, our web application. That is the one we're going to be developing, and you can see it's created a new folder here next to the site folder, and this one's called Django BPML event, and this is where all our code is going to be going, and that's what you would normally put into your Git repository. Alright, so if you're following along using Git, you can now just say git checkout step 2, and that will bring the code that when you did, actually if you were up here, if you did step 1, you would have got all this stuff done for you, and now if you do step 2, you'll get all the next bit done. The only thing that you would have had to do is install everything in the requirements.txt, but you'll find that if you go into that file, PyCharm will actually say, well, this is a requirements.txt file, do you want to install these libraries, and then do that for you. Okay, so in our in the site, this is really settings, as I said. We have to tell it that we've put a new, we've added a new app. So in installed apps, we're going to install our app, and the name of that app, it's taken from what we called it, Django BPML event. It's converted it from what they call snake case to title case, and that'll be in the program there, but we just need to say, in fact, if you look in apps.py, you'll see there it is. There's a class name with that name, and we just have to tell the project or the site that it's going to include this app. And so we do that by going into settings, and in the installed apps we'll just stick it at the front. There's our class that we added into the installed apps. You can see there's actually all these other apps have already been installed for us, and they just came in the library, and so we're getting a full admin app comes out of the box without us having to have typed any code. And the other change we have to make is we have to add this templates folder in. I don't know why that doesn't come automatically, because it seems like something everyone has to do. So I'll go down here to templates, and we'll find the templates directory is called templates. If you look through the rest of that file, you'll see that it talks about the database. The default is SQLite 3, so we'll just use that. It also sets the time zone. So these are just important things that the Django people have realized that every web app developer is going to need, so they just set them up for you. And so make you start to think about them early. It's takes a bit longer to get started because you've got to think about all these things that you might not want to, but it certainly makes it easier in the long run if you've set this up properly. Okay, and then in the site, remember the configuration, we have to say which app is going to handle which URLs. So remember, we can have one website and it could have several URLs, and each URL is going to take you to a different app. So we're going to have a URL that starts with admin is going to go to the admin app, and any URL that starts with BPML event is going to go to our app that we're going to create. So I can just copy that and put that into PAML site URLs, which is here. I'll just replace what's currently there with that. And then that shows where the start of the URLs are, and then we can create within our application our own individual URLs that this app is going to handle. So for a moment we'll just handle the nothing URL, and we'll make that call the index function. So there is no file there, so I have to create a Python file called URLs. Remember to ask questions, or maybe I can go over any of this stuff again if any of it's not clear. Copy that. Okay, and it's saying we're saying the pattern with nothing is going to call index page in our views file, and we're also going to give that a name, index. So that name is useful later on when we're generating URLs. So index page, we need to define that. So let's go and do that. And that's here in views.py. And what I'm going to do is, if this function gets called index page, it's going to return an HTTP response, which is a Django class, and the content of that response is going to be a header, an H1 header with the title BPML event. Okay, so let's test it. We can click on this. It opens up over here, localhost 8000, BPML event, and it's unable to connect. That one connected. Let's just see. Am I running? I think I'm still running. Django BPML event.urls. That's there now. Let's just restart. Shouldn't have done that. Let's go to this one. Run server. Okay. It keeps. Here we go. This tells me which one I'm going to run. I want to run that one. Run server. That's better. That's now running. And there's our website that we created. So if I look at the source code for that, just Control U. It's not much in that web page. It's just an H1. I haven't even put a body or a head or a, HTML around it. I've just given it the H1 tag and the text BPML event. And that's that. And if I go here, this is no longer working. We changed the URLs that were working before, and we took out just the empty URL. But we can see the ones that are working. Anything that starts with admin or anything that starts with BPML event. So let's see what admin gives us, and that gives us a login to the Django administration app. Now, some of this is going to follow along with the tutorial that Django provide, and so I've put where possible, the links, so where it's close to what Django's tutorial does, but it's good to have these slight differences because you can see why I've done mine my way, why they've done theirs their way, and how the two different ways, what the difference between the two, what those differences are. Okay, so we're going to set up a database, and the reason for that is because we need somewhere to store data when the computer gets turned off or restarted. We need somewhere to have that stored, and the information that we're storing is each of the attendees and the events that they want to attend, and we'll have a many-to-many relationship between them. So one attendee can attend many events, one event can be attended by many attendees. So the event needs a code, a date, a title, location, and a description. If you remember from here, we'll have a look at what's in an event. See, I've given it a code which we can use in the URLs, given it a title, a location, and a description. And Slade's joined up, very good. And the attendees are going to be pretty much everything that's already in the user table that comes with the admin app, but we just need one extra field, which is their name on meetup, because we need that extra name to be able to correlate those two, our two lists. So the way we do that, first of all, we tell Django that we're not going to just use the vanilla user table that comes with the admin app. We're going to create our own user model. So we put this into the overall site settings, because the one user model is going to work for all the apps on this site. So let's copy that and put it into settings. We just put it right down the bottom. Okay. And now we're going to tell Django what our database structure is going to be. Now we're going to do this using Python code, and Django is going to handle the rest. And this is really good because Django provides what's called an ORM, an object relational model, that lets you swap out your database with another database later, and it will convert all the SQL statements to the new language that's required for the new database. In this example, I wrote all the code just using SQLite, which is a very low-powered database, great for development, and easy to set up. but when I wanted to deploy it, I wanted to use a PostgreSQL database. So I just changed one line in the settings to say I'm now going to use PostgreSQL, and these are my connection details, the username, password, database name, etc. And it just converted everything else. The whole running of the application changed from using the SQL specific to SQLite to the SQL required for PostgreSQL, which is slightly different. So to do it, we just import models from DjangoDB, and we create a class that extends that model and provides, we say we want a character field for the code, a date time field for the date, and then more character fields for title, location, description, with some indication of how big they're going to be. And I also threw into the class an str method so that it can, whenever it displays one of the events, it'll just use the title to know that's the field that it should describe the event the best. Similarly for the user, I'm going to extend the abstract user so that the auth model provides in standard Django. So it's just the all the standard fields that you would normally get, plus meetup name, and I'm going to have a many-to-many relationship to the events table. And that's only taking 2 lines to say those things, but setting up a many-to-many relationship involves setting up a third table and relationships between those original two tables and that third table to handle it. So it's saved us quite a lot of work in doing that, and we can just use Python relationships for manipulating the data in those database, and it handles all the SQL that does that for us. So that's fantastic, and this is something that Django provides that Flask doesn't. So if you are considering doing a web application that's going to use a database, especially one that's going to require login, then Django would be the way to go, because it provides a lot of that stuff up front for free, and so you don't have to spend your time writing that. You can concentrate on the real logic and function of your web application. All right. Now what are we going to do? Oh yes, the admin app is good for editing data in our database. At the moment, it doesn't know anything about the events table that we just created, so we're just going to register our events table with the admin app, and then it will be able to edit events in there as well. So once again, another thing that's taken care of that we don't have to do. So we go into our admin.py file and register our models there. Alright, so we've defined the database in Python. The database hasn't been defined in SQLite though, so we need Python needs to run some code that will create the data structure within our database, whether it's SQLite or PostgreSQL. And it does this through migrations, and migrations are a great way of doing database updates, because it means in the future you might make a change to your app that requires a database data structure change. And so all you do is you make this migration. It'll save a migration with what the change is in the future, and then any database that it connects to that's using the old version, it will update it to the new version just by running the migration. So the migration might be add a new table, put an index on a particular field, increase the size of a text field, those sorts of migrations. And the Django actually has a tool that will just look at our model, look at the existing structure, and work out what migrations are required to make them. So you see I've got a folder here called migrations. In it there's an init.py that's got nothing in it, But now if I say manage.py make migrations, it'll create a file that will work out all the things that have to be done to the current database to make it work with our data model that we're wanting to use. So that makes the code. Now we have to run the code, and that's simply Python manage.py migrate, and that'll run our code. It'll actually, so we've only got one migration that we've created, but if we run it, you'll see down here it's running all these other migrations as well. So we've got it's got migrations from the admin app, from the auth app, content types from us, and from sessions. And so there you can see it runs all those migrations to create all the data structure that's required to run our code. Okay, now the database has been created. Oh yeah, so if you're following using Git, you need to run that step as well. So the make migrations you don't need to run because that code is in the Git repository, but to run the migration you need to run it so that your local database is created. And here it is here, db.sqlite3. That is actually the SQLite database. Okay. But we want to populate it. We want to create a super user. So and we have to do this from a terminal window. We can't just press the play button on that because it's going to ask us some questions. So I'll just copy that, close this window, create a new terminal, paste. So I'm going to create super user. So it's asking for my name, so I'll just say Tim, email address, yeah, I'll do this one, and then password, and check the password. It has to be a certain length, otherwise it'll complain. I mean, it'll let you put it in if you really want to. Okay, we've created a super user, and now I can log in to the admin app using those super user details. Unable to connect. Alright, so let's go back to our run window and we'll just restart. And there we go, we're in. So we've got a list of users, which has got one user in there. That's the user that just got created, and that's the super user. And we've got events, and we've got no events in there. So I'll just leave it like that for now. But yeah, that events has just turned up just because we registered with we registered our app to say we want to be able to edit events, and now the admin app can edit events in our app, so we don't have to worry about that, although we will actually make some improvements to what is provided. Right. And there we go, that's what we're checking out, the admin section of the Django. Now you can add some events in the admin. Oh yeah, we'll do that then. Let's add an event. So I like to do a code as just the date that it's going to be on, 21st of August. Let's go, give us a date picker, it's very nice. Run it 17:30, and we'll just say next one's going to be MicroPython by Slade. That's going to be at AWS, and don't miss out. Okay, so there's our events. We've created an event, and we can if we don't have any way of viewing them yet, but we can create them. So let's go back and work out how to set up our user interface to view the events. So the first page we're going to do is a list of events, and that's just going to be called by this URL. And then we're going to do another page which will be an individual event that we can use this event, this URL. So that's what we're having to design. Let's see how we do it. So first of all, let's create the index.html, and rather than using in views, we did an HTTP response. Creating HTML pages this way is a bit tedious, so Django uses a templating language called the Django templating language, which is very, very similar to the Flask templating language, which is called Ginger 2. I found just a couple of subtle differences between the two, but if you don't like it, the Django one, you can even configure it to use Ginger 2 if you're really familiar with it. To create templates, we have to create a folder in here, new directory, we'll call it templates, and in that folder we'll create another folder called Django BPML event. And there's a reason for this hierarchy of folders, because it makes it possible for our app to override templates in other libraries, like the admin library, for our own purposes. So let's do that. And then we'll create an HTML file in there that's called index. And there PyCharm gives us, it's worked out HTML. You probably want something like that. So let's add in this code. So that's the sort of thing we want. We're going to say an H1 header and then a list of events that are coming up. So we'll start off with just a straight static template, and then we'll work on how to make that be dynamically generated. So I'll do the same for event. We're just going to have a header 1 that says selected event, and then we'll just say beginners Python and machine learning for now, and then later on we'll dynamically generate all the content for that. But we'll start with this just to see how templates work. And now in our views folder file, rather than returning an HTTP response, we'll reference the template and we'll ask it to render the request using that template. Okay. But we need to tell it what to do with those URLs. We're just going to add one URL there. So this one we've already done. So we're going to add this. So if someone types in event with a code, then we're going to call up our event page function, and it's going to be called name event if we need to generate this URL somewhere else. So that's going to go into URLs. Just for ease, I'm going to just replace. That's the wrong URL, so that's in site. This is the one I'm going to replace. And so they're the two URLs. Nothing takes us to the index, and event/code will take us to the event page. So let's see how that's working before we go on. So there's our list of events. If we look at the source, Control U, you can see that's the HTML exactly as it came from the template. And if we went to the code 20240821, not that that matters what the code is, we can just see it comes to our selected event. So they're now working. Alright, but some people might come straight to our website without going to a sub URL. So let's create something there that will give them some links that they can click on. And you can see here the advantage now of this folder structure. You can sort of see it, that this one here, BPML home, we're not going to put in the subfolder for the application. It's going to be a site-wide thing. So we'll create a new HTML file there that we're going to call BPML home for the whole site, and in it we're going to put a couple of links, and this link here we'll put in the new one that's for August. So this is looking a bit different. In our href, rather than putting in the actual URL that someone needs to click on, we're going to make Django build the URL. So the URLs have got names, and so we're going to use the name there. Curly bracket % says run a function, and the function is going to be URL. It's going to build a URL that's going to be based on the index, the one with the name index. And then we're also going to build a URL with the name event that's got, we're going to pass in some extra information to that URL, and that's going to be that code. And just to make it consistent, I'll put that code over there as well. So let's see what we get on our home page when we go there. And I do that in Firefox. Yep. I'm back in Chrome. Firefox. So if someone just comes to the home, we get that, and we can see that we haven't told it what to do if someone doesn't have admin or BPML event in the URL. So we better fix that. There, and of course that was the next step, is this one here, what to do. And remember, this is on the site URLs, not on the app URLs. I better stick a comma in there. Template view, that's going to be, where's that come from? Okay, we'll go back to Firefox and reload the page. There we go. You see, we're not having to actually stop and start the app all the time. It just keeps refreshing as we put in new code. We've got two links here now. I can open that one and we get our list of events, and this one is a specific event. And you can see if you hover over them that it's worked out. It's built up the URL itself, including adding in the host name and the port number, because that's if you look down the bottom here, it'll tell you what the URL is. It's localhost 8000/BPML event. So this just makes it your program safe. If you ever need to change a function name or even a URL, it'll always generate the correct URLs that are current at the time. Alright, so that's as far as we got in the in-person session. We'll try to do these last couple of steps, and that'll get us to the next step for Git checkout. Okay, so the way these templates work is that you provide blocks in them, and that way you can have one template that's based on another one. It just extends it. We use the extends command, and then you just say which blocks you want to change. Now this means so we can set up a new base .html. So we're going to call it base.html, and we're going to extend the admin one. And the advantage of this is that we can use all that admin styling, where they're much better than I am at styling web applications. So we'll just extend it and just throw our stuff into their styling. I put in room for adding in an extra style sheet, so I can put a bit of custom stuff in. So let's give that a go. Let's create a base.html in here. And all this doc type and HTML stuff, that's going to come from the template that we're extending. So we'll get rid of all of that and just put in this code. Remember, curly brace %sign runs a function, and double curly brace provides dynamic content generation. So we're going to extend this template out of admin, which, where's that? That's way back in here. You can even look in your virtual environment, in your scripts. If we look in contrib, it's going to be in there. Admin, templates, admin, base.html. So this is the third-party library that we installed. This is the Django one, actually. So that's their HTML, and we're just going to extend that. So we'll grab that, and then you can see they've set up these blocks sometimes with content, and we can just override any of these blocks that we want to. Some of the blocks they've provided are just empty, but it gives us a spot we can insert stuff, and that's what we're going to do. So block extra style, that's where we throw in our style sheet. Block title, we're going to put in our title. Branding, we're going to add some branding. I even included the color theme toggle because I thought that was pretty clever. And then some of this I've copied from them, but just put in a couple of changes. So for the content, I'm going to have a spot where there's going to be an aside that is going to be the user on the sidebar, and then I'm going to have a main bit that most of my templates will provide the content for the main block. Alright, and we're going to create a style sheet for this. Okay, so style sheets go into another place. They go into a folder called static, and the benefit of the static folder is that you can get your web server to let's get out of this. So when you're running a web application, you have a web server at the front that catches all the requests. So that'll be something like Apache or Nginx. And then Apache looks at any static content and it serves it up itself. So it doesn't even need to go to the the app server. So and Apache and Nginx, they're really good at serving up static content. Then all the dynamic content, that's all the web application has to worry about. Once again, we use this hierarchical folder structure so we can override things when we need to. And let's create our style sheet file called BPML CSS and paste that. Once again, trying to sell us PyCharm Professional. looks good. Right, so now in each template remove the surrounding body tags and everything outside them and enclose the remainder with this. So I've only got a couple of templates, so let's do that. So an event, we're going to have this. We're just going to say we're going to extend our own base template, and we want to put some more stuff into the main block, which will just be this for now. So we'll get rid of that. And we'll do the same in index. So just our unordered list. Okay, so if you remember from before, very plain, that's very plain there. Now if we reload it, now we've got all the styles that have come through from the admin app, and so it just looks a lot better, and I haven't had to worry about it too much. The style sheets that I provided aren't even for this part of it, so I could have left that bit out at this stage. All this styling has happened from the admin app. So I think that's a good spot to stop. I hope you found it useful. I hope you, if you're following along, you're managing to get the same results. If you get error messages, they look daunting at first, but try reading them carefully, and you'll find they're not too hard. And work out. So we had a couple of times there where the URLs were not working, and it was just because we hadn't set up the URLs properly, and that's usually going to be the first place to look. So I hope you enjoyed that. Not getting a lot of comments. Next week, Aruna will be giving a presentation on machine learning. So I look forward to that, and the week after that is a public holiday, so we may not have week after that will be a first week of August, and so that one will be a session for absolute beginners, and then the week after that's a public holiday in Brisbane for the Royal Show, so we won't be doing a session that time, and then the week after that will be our next in-person session, where Slade will be doing a presentation on MicroPython and embedded Python, and Bogdan Inque will be talking about open source large language models and how to do a demonstration of how to fine-tune them. So until next time, I'm Tim Cummings.